Hello friends, welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am your host, Tom Downey. Now in the past, we've gone through contract projections for DeMarcus Lawrence, which we were almost exactly right on. Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper also got done, although we don't know what those deals look like quite yet. Now we're going to take a look here at a contract projection for Ezekiel Elliott, who will not be a true free agent until 2021. There's this year, next year has his fifth-year option. Now the Cowboys, if they really need to, have that fifth-year option and franchise tags, but they would prefer to extend him. And both sides have discussed a contract, but that wasn't the let's exchange numbers and get close to a deal. That was more of the let's have a brief discussion here and make sure we're on the right path. Now that figure, in terms of what the path is, includes quite a bit of money. Now we'll take you through some comparisons and overall, but I think the big thing here, the Cowboys have to decide, is Zeke worth paying as the number one back in the NFL? And in reality, yeah, that's probably the situation here. The past 3 years, even with the 6-game suspension in 2017, Zeke has produced as well, if not the best, of any running back over that 3-year time frame. He's been fantastic on the ground, and last year, you saw more success in the passing game, although it was more of the quick swing pass, check down type variety. That's why it's 567 yards on only 77 receptions. Now, before we dive in here, I want to know from you guys. How much is Zeke worth per year? Let me know in the comment section, and then we'll come back and see what the projection could look like there. I always like to ask this early on and then have a little more of an in-depth, more narrow discussion. So for Zeke, he's probably going to be, at minimum, one of the 4 highest paid backs in the NFL. There's a pretty steep drop-off there. There's Todd Gurley at $14.4 million, Le'Veon Bell at $13.1, David Johnson at $13, and then a steep fall to Devonta Freeman and LaShawn McCoy. It's very similar there for highest paid backs in terms of guaranteed money. Gurley got $45 guaranteed, David Johnson just under $32, Le'Veon Bell only $27 guaranteed up front in terms of the practical guarantees for all of those players. Now, one note here, especially as it relates to Freeman and McCoy and Johnson and Gurley versus Lev Bell, the salary cap rises each year. The David Johnson and the Todd Gurley deals were signed when the cap was over $177 million. Excuse me, I kind of lost my train of thought there. The cap goes up each year. Now, of course, smart teams prepare for that, and that's why we often look at the highest paid player in terms of percentage of the cap. That's a better indication of what that contract was relative to the rest of the NFL at that time. So Todd Gurley over $8 million, David Johnson or over 8%, David Johnson over 7%, Lev Bell under 7%, and then LaShawn McCoy at about 5.5%, and Devonta Freeman was under 5% of the cap. Take note overall, especially if you watch the Dak Prescott one and the Amari Cooper one, the contracts for running backs significantly lower than the contracts for receivers and quarterbacks. I think that's in large part due to the depth of the NFL. When you get to, let's say, the 35th quarterback in the NFL, you're in trouble. 35th receiver, that's a starter in reality. The 35th running back, he's still pretty good. But there's so much depth at the running back spot, it drives down the market value, and that will impact the Zeke contract talks with the Cowboys. So let's compare some of those players. We'll, of course, skip LaShawn McCoy, Devonta Freeman. Frankly, I don't think they're good comparisons for Zeke Elliott because he's going to get more with them. Of course, by the way, assumes A, the deal is done this offseason, and B, there are no more off-the-field incidents for Zeke. So Lev Bell, 4 years, $52.5 million, 27 of that was guaranteed. It came in just under 7% of the cap, and I'll make note in particular, Bell did not get more than Todd Gurley. I think that is a move that comes in favor of the Dallas Cowboys. Zeke's biggest leverage point is, hey, maybe I want to hold out. Maybe I just want to get paid now. I want to keep my body fresh. The Cowboys will say, okay, sure, you can do that. Look what Bell got. It's less than what Todd Gurley got. Now, this is over the last 3 years in terms of they've played, so I didn't include Lev Bell's 2018 year. I just went 17, 16, 15. There was an injury for Bell too, but that was kind of the nature of Bell. So the numbers-wise, I think it favors Zeke Elliott. And I think that from the Cowboys' perspective, they've accepted the fact that if and when they pay Zeke, it's going to be more than Lev Bell, especially in terms of the percentage of the cap. That's also true for David Johnson. Now, the number is small, or at least appears smaller, because DJ signed only a 3-year extension, and I'll make note, he was also coming off an injury. So that also kind of brings down David Johnson's contract value. Now, in terms of the Zeke versus David Johnson comparison, I just went with career. I know that I added this year for David Johnson, but I included it because he was hurt for all but one game in 2017, so I figured it was fine. It kind of evens out the numbers a little bit more. And although DJ definitely has more touchdowns, and more receiving yards, I think the rest of the numbers do kind of favor Zeke Elliott on that front. So for Zeke, it all comes down to the Todd Gurley comparison. And Steven just made that clear. He said the contract discussions start with what Todd Gurley got. Here's what he got. 4 years, $57.5 million, $45 million of which was guaranteed, came in at 8.17% of the cap, a noticeable jump versus David Johnson and versus Lev Bell and, all the other running backs out there. Now, for the first 3 years of their NFL career, so I didn't include this past year because I'm timing it up with when Zeke gets his extension in theory and when Gurley got his deal, which, by the way, also came 1 year before his fifth-year contract year began. So the timing is very similar here. But the numbers are pretty comparable. Similar touchdowns, pretty similar receiving yards, a little bit more in favor of Gurley there. More carries, of course, for Zeke, but a lot more rushing yards as well. So I ask you this question. Who would you rather have at running back? Type Z for Zeke and give me a G for Todd Gurley. Now, if you're typing in Z for Zeke, which I think most of you will, you're also saying we need to make Zeke the highest paid running back in the NFL. Because why would Elliott take less than Todd Gurley? I don't think he would unless there are more extenuating circumstances off the field. The question becomes then, how much more than Todd Gurley does Zeke get? Now, Gurley did reset the market, which hadn't been affected drastically since this kid named Adrian Peterson. Now, we'll take you way back 2011 because Adrian Peterson, his contracts were so much different than all the other running backs that we've seen come in that, whatever, we'll say 10-year time frame since around when he entered the league. 6 years, over $85 million. That's $14.38 million guaranteed. That was back in average money there. That was way back in 2011. That's almost 12% of the salary cap. And we'll make note of what Todd Gurley's getting right now. He's at 8%. That's a significant difference. Now, the Vikings did decide, and I'll make a note here again, of the salary cap and how much it's drastically changed since then. It's gone up a massive amount. It's now $188.2 million. Back in 2011, it was a $120 million cap. That's massive. Now, the Vikings did redo Peterson's deal in 2015. It became a 3-year, $42 million deal. That still averages $14 million per year, comes in just under 10% of the cap. So, yes, Peterson makes made less on that deal than Todd Gurley does per year now, but the salary caps were so different, he actually made more relative to the rest of the NFL and the rest of the cap. So if we're basing it on the percentage of the cap for Zeke Elliott, here's what his per years look like, and of course there is some rounding here, so maybe it's more like 14.58, but that's the general figure there. 7.75% of the cap, it puts you just under 14.6. You get up to 8%, now you're above the $15 million mark. 8.25, 15.3. And if you want to get to the 9%, which I don't think you're going to see happen, that approaches $17 million per year. Now remember, Todd Gurley, 8.17%. Now he did not hit the $15 million mark, but I think Zeke's going to if and when this deal does get done. So here is my contract projection. 4 years, just like Todd Gurley, just like Bell, and 1 more year longer than David Johnson. $60 million in terms of total money. And 47 of that is guaranteed. Now, the percentage of the cap is actually lower than Todd Gurley's. It's 7.97 versus 8.17. It is still $15 million per year, so Zeke does make more than Gurley. And I'd say more so than the Dak Prescott contract talks and the Amari Cooper contract talks. I think the Cowboys have a little bit more leverage with Zeke Elliott. His deal does not expire until after the 2021 season. He's got plenty of time for the Cowboys to take their time on that front. And B, the Cowboys are going to approach these negotiations with, hey, let's make you the highest paid back in the NFL. You don't have to put as much emphasis there on percentage of the cap. If you're the Cowboys, we're already making you the highest paid back in the NFL. And remember when you got suspended, is what they'll say to Zeke, we had your back. Why don't you help us out here a little bit? We'll give you a lot of guaranteed money, a lot of money over 4 years, and that's of course, the new money. So we'll make this year's contract, next year's contract, then it kicks in. So for the Cowboys, it does become, should Zeke be the highest paid back in the NFL? If you commit to extending him, you have to do it. I don't see a scenario in which Zeke says, yes, I lost all of these earnings because of my suspension. I'm now going to take $5 million less than what Todd Gurley got. I think at that point, you have to make him the highest paid back in the NFL. Now, he put this up on our YouTube channel as well. Here were the poll results. I'll say rather unsurprising numbers here. 75% say yes, 25% say no. I think it is kind of on the yes side there. And yes, it becomes expensive because you're paying Zeke, let's say 15. You're paying Dak, let's just say 30. And you're paying Amari Cooper, let's say 17. All of a sudden, you're paying a lot of money for your young core, but it is your young core, your new triplets. Of course, they're not as good as Aikman, Smith, and Irvin, but it is a promising young trio there. So those are your poll results there, folks. Make sure you're subscribed, by the way. YouTube.com/Dallas Cowboys Report. Your votes can be included on these going forward. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.